Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. Lincoln Riley, USC, wrapping up their spring practice with the scrimmage on Saturday afternoon. Now, I kind of want to just have an all-encompassing conversation about where this USC team sits heading into the summer, heading into fall camp. The USC fans who've been rocking with the fellas for a while know this. I almost feel like we haven't talked about the actual USC team in 2025 that much. So much of our conversation has been breaking down commitments, talking about recruiting weekends. And look, rightfully so, it's been a blast to talk about what USC is doing in terms of talent acquisition. We still got it. We still got a football season to play in 2025. We want to dive into where this team sits. Dale, two things right off the bat. Number one, the vibe around the program just feels different. Chad Bowden has come in and he's maximized what USC can be over the last couple of weeks and months. Dill, you made a really good analogy over the weekend, and we were talking about what feels different about USC. And you said what? USC, they're the hunters, not they're hunted. And you go back to last
year. You even said it last year when they got those big commitments from Terry and Gibson. It was like you even were like, oh well, it's Georgia. Are they going to be able to close it? Is Georgia? I mean, Georgia's the one coming. Georgia's the one coming.
Yeah.
Now you do feel like when USC wants to go look at Oregon's commitment list, yeah, they're coming and they're closing and they're making it happen. And I think they are striking more fear in teams in terms like USC does feel like a place people want to go to, and it does feel like that one of the top dogs in the sport.
They're operating like they're one of the top dogs in sport, and quite frankly, like that's how it should be. And I think most importantly, like it's one thing for you and I to say that, sit in our basements in Rochester, New York, like Chad Bowden, Lincoln Riley ain't trying to recruit the boys, they're trying to recruit guys like Tom. That message is being relayed very clearly to these top kids at the high school ranks. Like it just feels like when you look at that USC offer, when you take your visit to USC, it just means a little bit more over the last couple of weeks and months. That's number one. Dill, number two, and this is probably where I want to start, is the defense the strength of this team going into 2025? And that's not a knock on the USC offense, because there's a couple of reasons why maybe the defense feels like the strength in spring. Most notably, Mekhi Lemon hasn't really been participating a ton, trying to get healthy for 2025. Like that's probably your best playmaker, maybe outside of Jacoby Lane on the offensive side of the football. I love that because, one, I think that's going to play more in the Big Ten. Like you have to be able to lean on your defense in the Big Ten if you want to consistently win football games. Number two, I've developed just a blind confidence in Lincoln Riley to put together quality offenses. So even if it's maybe not elite right now because you're going up against a much stronger defense in practice, I kind of trust that USC is going to put up points on the offensive side of the football in 2025. Now, let's kind of just run down this roster and talk about where we sit before we do. And as always, the USC fans, just want to say thank you to y'all, Dill. It's been a blast for you and I talking this program over the last couple of weeks and months. And whether we're breaking down commitments, talking about recruiting weekends, talking about spring ball, y'all always show out in the comment section, show a ton of love. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, let's start with this. Jaden's coming to spring, and it sounds like very clearly has won that quarterback one spot going into 2025. To me, that's important because you look at different quarterback battles you've seen across the country. Normally when there's not a quarterback that kind of ends spring as like, yeah, that's obviously the guy, to me, that's a bad thing. Like, though we're Michigan fans, we kind of had that last year where it's like, hey, we got a 4 quarterback race going into fall camp. No, that kind of meant that we didn't really have a starting quarterback going into fall camp. For USC, with Jaden kind of clearly taking over the offense, if I'm a USC fan, that fires me up a little bit.
Yeah, because that at least I think suggests that Jaden may have us taking some big steps. And again, he certainly needs to, because last year was clearly not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact that he has really taken control of that battle, I think makes you feel like, well, like that play against Texas A&M, the one I'm thinking that he fumbled backwards, and like that type of chaos play that he was unleashing too often on USC. I think that's probably been cleaned up because, frankly, if that's still a common thread, if you will, in his game, I don't think this battle's over. Hushawn Longstreet is probably too talented.
But I think that's the point, though, is like you're probably not seeing not as much of a roller coaster And like that's what we've said with Jaden coming out of 2024 years. Like you love the ability to create, you love the ability to make big time throws. Like those were some of the things that at times Miller Moss lacked, but you want it to be a little bit more consistent. In over the last couple of weeks, just continuing to hear intel that one, Hassan Longstreet is farther along than most freshmen are, but Jaden is still kind of the clear quarterback one. Like that, from an outsider looking in, to me, it means Jaden's a little bit more comfortable in the offense and taking care of the football more and doing the small things a little bit better. That's
and
a really
really,
good
you
sign.
shouldn't need hero quarterback play necessarily, because I do look, you have two guys at wide receiver who are frankly probably going to be knocking on the door of first round picks. And that's maybe part of that is it's not the strongest wide receiver class I don't think we've ever seen in the NFL draft. Obviously, next year might be quite a bit stronger. But you look, Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane are very, very good playmakers. Mekhi Lemon, especially, I think, is a guy who makes the quarterback's job far easier. So that is a big thing. I mean, if you're the USC quarterback, you can't be making a ton of mistakes because, again, I think you do have guys around you, and especially if the offensive line's playing better and better, and what at least Lincoln Riley's kind of been saying, you have an offense that, again, I don't know that you need a ton of like Caleb Williams hero ball from 2023 to be really effective.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that would help Jaden. Like just taking a little bit, hey, you don't have to wear the Superman cape every single play. Just play within the offense. Lincoln Riley's going to dial it up for you. Play within the offense. Tobias Raymond locking down right tackle. Another one of those examples where it sounds like Tobias has won the job because he's taken the step. Really big. I look at the USC starting five and saying, I feel pretty confident. Like Elijah Page very well might be a first-round NFL draft pick. DJ Wingfield, Janoria Reed on the inside, they can play. Alani Noah, like Lincoln Riley said this. Like Alani Noah was playing like a best offensive lineman down the stretch last year. Those are Lincoln Riley's words, not mine. We were kind of questioning, what's the right tackle position going to look like? Last year was a roller coaster with Mason Murphy out there. It sounds like Tobias going into year 3 is that guy. The only question I think most USC fans do have is, are we deep enough? And that's probably the question that you're going to monitor as you go into fall camp where, look, you kind of hope that your starting 5 stays healthy all year. But if it doesn't and you do have to kind of shuffle the deck a little bit, are we deep enough to kind of shuffle the deck and play football in November with the offensive line where it is right now? It's probably what you got to figure out during fall camps. Like,
and that's probably going to be a bit of a building process, frankly, for this program. And in terms of getting them back to that really ultra competitive national championship year in and year out level. And you are seeing it. I mean, they're bringing in a bigger, more talented crop of offensive linemen. Am I hearing something about Pepe getting kind of
Dill, we're sitting April 27th. I'll give you a little update on the USC recruitings right now. April 27th right now. You got 5 offensive linemen committed to USC. You sound like you're really trending in a positive way for Kenny Pepe, 5-star offensive tackle, blue chip caliber dude. Chad Bowden, I think Chad Bowden probably just realized what you said. When I came to USC and I looked at, hey, where's this roster sit? Where's the depth chart sit? Probably got to do some work on the offensive line. And look, you can't do that work in the transfer portal. You're just not going to find that many starting caliber guys. Go push your chips in for elite guys on the offensive line. We want to see the depth emerge in our fall camp. They'll going into 2026, 2027. Got no question marks about USC building the depth.
Again, right now, I mean, you feel good about Justin T. I think he is a very serviceable swing tackle.
Agreed.
Piece, which, again, even more encouraging that Tobias Raymond's kind of really grabbed hold of that job, because I don't think he's beating out a scrub. Like, Justin Tuanu is a pretty good player. I was pretty impressed with that A&M film.
Yes.
I don't know that you have that next guy. I mean, you're probably going to be at that point, as you kind of show, relying on.
Look, I'll say the emergence of Justin T is big because there are a lot of programs across the country that don't have 2 tackles they trust, much less 3. It's hard to have 4 or 5 tackles that you trust to play, just because in this era where if you're a good player and you're not starting, you can go and play somewhere else. I do think the emergence of Justin T, who can play left and right tackle, that's really big for USC at the tackle position. Last one I'll shout out, Dale, is did USC land their wide receiver 3 yesterday? And you weren't able to hop on and talk about it, but you did a little bit of work on this kid coming from Utah and Zack Williams. I don't know. You know what I mean? We'll probably find that out during fall camp, but one of the questions we had going into fall camp was, all right, Jacoby Lamb and Kyle Lemon dogs. Who's going to be that wide receiver 3 option? Heard some good things about Prince. You've heard some good things about Corey Sims as a true freshman. Dill, I think me and you both agree that there is a very good chance that Zack Williams comes in and is your starting third wide receiver in that rotation in 2025.
Because for the size he is, I mean, he's a really pretty good mover. And I don't know if he's blisteringly fast, but he does get in and out of breaks. He's pretty effective with the ball in his hands. I do think he, again, with the lack of provenness probably behind him and what he was able to do for Utah towards the end of the year, where he started to get more playing time and starting to be more productive in an offense that was anemic in terms of their ability to throw the ball. Like, they just didn't really have a quarterback. Their offensive line, I didn't think, was playing particularly great. But he does have a skill set that I think can be very effective, especially because they probably needed that second boundary guy. And I think Zack Williams can be that guy.
They'll know what he does really well. Blocks on the perimeter. Love it. Like, we know USC wants to work the quick game. And again, going back to the conversation of how can we really get the most out of Jaden and not force him to kind of press a little bit, because that's kind of where the turnovers and where the sloppy play comes in for Jaden, when he's trying to do too much. You have the ability to, hey, quick throw out in space to Mekhi Lemon, give him some space. Zack Williams doing a nice job blocking on the perimeter, taking pressure off your quarterback, Jaden. I think that's big. And Zack Williams, go back to his high school film. Dude takes a ton of pride in blocking on the perimeter. And Dill, he's listed at 196. I ain't buying it. Like, that's got to be close to 210. He's a big dude out there. All right, switching over, and this might be the biggest storyline of USC season, if we're being honest. The defensive line is going to be, we think, arguably, outside of maybe the wide receiver with Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon, like, is this the best unit on the football field for USC? I don't think that's a crazy claim to make. What stands out to me, though, is it's not only talented, it's deep. That's going to be huge for USC. Like, think about how many games in the fourth quarter USC just wilted away. Like, I don't have to remind the USC fans that, like, the one score losses that we saw this team have in the 2024 year. Well, why did that happen? I think part of it was he had guys like Devin Tompkins playing 50-plus snaps a game because you weren't deep enough on the defensive line. So you're getting into the fourth quarter, one-score game. Devin Tompkins is out there, dog-tired because he's been on the field all day. You talk about winning one-score games in the Big Ten. Like, it starts being deep along the lines of scrimmage, specifically on the defensive line. I'm looking at the defensive line and saying we are an extremely deep unit where that will pay massive dividends late in games in the Big Ten schedule in the 2025 year.
And probably maybe a equally as big thing for me with the defensive line now is it's a little bit more multi-talented. Like, last year, I feel like you were way too small. You had a lot of guys who, again, I thought could do some good things, but you just didn't have enough Jarrett, Keyshawn Silver, what Carlin Jones and Floyd Buchard, I think you hope can kind of develop into. Again, like Tompkins, Abasari, like, they have skill sets that you like. Jakeem Stewart, probably going to be better pass rushers, maybe a little bit more effective in getting into the backfield, but you still need some big bodies who can just be tough against teams like Minnesota or Wisconsin, or those teams that want to be able to be a little bit more physical than maybe other teams that want to spread you out a little bit more. So I think they just do have, again, a defensive line group that I look at and say, well, this is what a Big Ten defensive line group should probably look like. Because last year, again, you were both thin and you were really small. Like, it's not a great combo, I don't think, for a lot.
No, it's a very, very bad. Like, you get Devin Tompkins, 285-pound soaking wet last year. He looks way bigger, by the way. Like, Devin Tompkins looks great. He's not the most fun to talk about because he's not a new toy. He ain't Jakeem Stewart, 5-star defensive lineman coming in. I love Devin Tompkins.
Well, and I don't say that to say like Devin Tompkins was an effective player for them. It's just that sometimes they felt like you put him in a position that, like, well, that's not where he's going to thrive. Yeah. That's maybe not the down and distance that he's going to thrive, or the situation.
Simplify it. Well, you're 285 pounds playing in the Big Ten in the middle of the defensive line in the fourth quarter, having played 50 snaps in the game, sucking wind. That ain't a good combination to have. Next storyline, Dill. A linebacker stepped up, like, pleasant surprise. We were going into spring like, all right, love Eric Gentry, love him. Like, high on what Desmond Stevens can go in year 2. Okay, who else? Hadn't seen much of Jaden Walker. Anthony Beavers is making the transition down from safety. like the emergence of Jaden Walker and then bringing in Tamir Robinson from Penn State, all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're deeper than we are. And Dill, here's the thing that stands out to me that fires me up. And I hope USC fans are listening to that minute 15 because I wish I made this comment a little earlier. Having the size and physicality that you have on the defensive line, the ability to win at the point of attack, win at the line of scrimmage, and then coupling that with a ton of juice, speed, and athleticism at the second level at the linebacker spot, it's a great combination to have. Like, it reminds me, and I'm not saying we're going to get the Georgia defense this year, but it reminds me of how we talked about Georgia in 2021 and in 2022, where they had an overwhelmingly physical defensive line with just these juiced up, fast linebackers that were able to play clean because the defensive line's winning at the line of scrimmage, flying to the football. That's what fires me up the most about this USC defense going into the 2025 year.
Yeah, I kind of agree because, again, like, I think those guys in space were very good. I mean, Eric Gentry in space is really, really good. Desmond Stevens, I think, should be really, really good. Yes. I think they do pair up better. Again, it all kind of feeds into itself. They just, when you're that small up front as they were last year, it's really hard to play against teams like Penn State who want to run that type of offense. Yeah. I just look, they're much better equipped at all levels, frankly.
Especially when you have smaller linebackers who, might not be as good at, stacking and shedding blocks, but playing space. That's what they're good at. Like, it's a good combination that you got. Last thing I'll say, like, fun battle at the cornerback position, Bruindale. Look, I think we know who our starting safeties are. Kamari Ramsey and Bishop Fitzgerald. We know Kamari Ramsey's a dog. Bishop Fitzgerald's gotten a lot of praise from Lincoln Riley. We're good. We're good at the safety spot. All right, cornerback position. What's that looking like? It sounds like, as we sit right now, it's DeCarlos Nicholson and DJ Harvey start at the boundary cornerback spots with Braylon Connolly and Marcellus Williams, the two young buck redshirt freshmen, nipping at their heels. I love that in spring, where it's like, all right, we know what we have with DeCarlos Nicholson and DJ Harvey. Played a lot of football, played solid football. All right, young bucks, like, go win that job. It's going to make the veterans better because, hey, you want to get on the football field for USC. You better take care of business in fall camp. But you got a couple hungry dogs that are chasing these veteran cornerbacks down. And I think we're both fired up for Marcellus Williams and what he can be in year 2 of his college football career.
Yeah, and you still go back to that spring, the instincts, the ability to take the football away.
Polished, man.
Again, especially as they get deeper into Coach Lynn's tenure and they get more familiarity with what he's doing.
Yeah,
you'd like to think that they can really get taking the ball away pretty consistently and doing it like at a high rate and making that a weapon or at least a part of their football game.
In Braylon Connolly, it sounds like he's like, could Braylon Connolly got a lot of buzz last year in fall camp, and then we didn't really see him much because he had a bunch of veteran cornerbacks that kind of played over him. Well, he's generating the buzz again. Like, hey, keep that buzz going into fall camp. And if you're a USC fan, like, what would fire you up is, hey, getting Braylon Connolly and Marcellus Williams on the field, because if they're on the field, that means they're beating out some solid, steady veteran guys, the cornerback spot. Maybe still a little bit thin at that position. I wonder if USC wants to bring in one more defensive back was out. I don't know, man. Just if I were to, I'm sitting here in my basement in Rochester, New York, giving Chad Bowden some advice. But if I were to do that, I would just say, keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, do it the right way. You didn't see USC go out and pay $2 million for a guy like David Bailey to come in for 6 months. Yeah, he would have helped your team. But guess what? The help in the future of this team, like going out and getting a guy like Tom on the defensive line, it's a better investment. Keep eating your vegetables. Keep just building this program the right way. Even if it's not a national championship in 2025, follow the process. And if you continue to do that, if USC operates like they are right now for the next 12 months, this is a team that not only will be able to compete for 1 year, like compete for the next 10. And that's the standard at USC. We'll close it out there. No, what am I doing? Giving freaking advice to Chad Bowden. Genius. All right. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.